So good morning. I'm happy to be here today with you. Speaking to the mic, he reminded me. For Mother's Day and also to celebrate Mother Nature. You know, it's a beautiful time of year with the lilacs and everything right now. So the topic for the sermon or worship talk is Mother Earth, Mother's Day Reflections. So a lot of us may be feeling joy this morning as we honor our mothers, and some of us may be grieving as well if we've lost loved ones or have some reason for sadness on this particular holiday. And I would say the same is true with our Mother Earth. You know, some of us may be celebrating out among the trees and nature walks and feeling filled up by that. And some of us may be grieving if we've seen the destruction of our urban forest areas or our waters or our lands. So sometimes, you know, we're holding both of those things at the same time. So there's a quote I saw recently. We are all either mothers or children of mothers. And another quote, we are all children of one great mother, nature. So for today's topic, I want to share a bit from my book, Faith, Hope, Action, Ushering in a New Earth Era Together. So the book chronicles ways that we can care for our Mother Earth and also for each other. And the journey with this book began because I wanted to understand climate change and I wanted to understand a bit more about our environmental challenges. So I asked 3 questions. What harmful human actions are causing our environmental crisis? How do we learn to work together to solve the challenges we face? What positive actions can we take to benefit our Earth home and all of Earth's inhabitants? So it was supposed to be a 1-year project. It ended up being 2 years, and I spoke with environmental nonprofit organizations, scientists, indigenous teachers, student activists, faith leaders, including UUs, and just a whole host of people who are doing earth care work and helping our planet stay healthy. I also spent time in nature because Mother Nature also has a lot to teach us when we slow down and listen to what she has to say. So there's a lot in the book, more than I'm going to touch upon this morning. I'm just going to talk about 4 things. First, understanding the root cause of the environmental problems is an enormously helpful place to begin. You know, we've likely seen in the news or witnessed ourselves urban flooding, heat waves, intense wildfires, you know, these things that we're concerned about. So getting to the root cause of some of that is helpful. It's no different than when we have symptoms of some ailment and we go to the doctor and we explain the symptoms, and the doctor may say, you know, you have high blood pressure, you need to cut back on your salt, or you have a borderline diabetic situation, you need to cut back on your sugar. It's the same thing with our Earth home. We can look at the symptoms, the causes, and then we can take the actions to make sure our Mother Earth is also healthy. Okay. So an example that's in the book, if you recall the fires in Maui a while back in the area known as Lahaina. So Maui is one of the Hawaii islands. It's known as the heart chakra, and a fire just decimated the whole area of Lahaina very quickly. Life, property, animals, all of it gone. And they later learned that Europeans had brought in non-native grasses to feed cattle and for ornamental purposes. And so those non-native grasses acted like a tinderbox. And then you had drought conditions, which exacerbated the fire, and then you had high winds from an intense hurricane. So understanding the role of native plants to a healthy ecosystem is really important to understanding, you know, how to maintain and sustain a healthy Earth home. Another example, since it's Mother's Day, baby birds need native plants and native trees because those native plants and native trees bring the insects that feed the baby birds. So baby birds cannot eat bird seed the way adult birds can. And so if you don't have the native trees and the native plants, our baby bird population can die off. So if you see a lot of Bradford pear trees and the ivy, invasive ivy on the lawns, that's not bringing in the insects that those baby birds need for their survival. So I'm going to give a little Mother's Day plug for the baby birds. So the second thing I learned is that the Earth's problems can at times be overwhelming for me as well. When I was, diving into this for 2 years, and I'm sure that's true for some of us here, it can feel overwhelming when you start diving into the problems. That's where our faith, the part of faith, hope, action, our faith can sustain us because it reminds us of our values and it reminds us that the work we are doing matters. So for use the interconnected web of life of which we are a part, we respect and honor that, and that can remind us that everything we do is connected and serving a purpose. Okay, so there's a quote by Chief Seattle: "Humankind has not woven the web of life, we are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together, all things connect." Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh likewise taught, the earth is not just our environment out there, the earth is us. Taking care of the earth, we are taking care of ourselves. And I think sometimes taking care of ourselves is also taking care of the earth. It's, reciprocal relationship. So when I was working on this book, I spent time at a nature retreat area. It's St. Mary of the Woods. It's in northern Indiana. And that hermitage house was made of recycled materials, energy efficient appliances. They have an organic farm, alpacas, a labyrinth, woods, just a very nice setting. And the foundress there was St. Mother Theodore Guerin. And her quote, when I saw it, I thought, oh, this is a very helpful quote if we're feeling overwhelmed. So her quote is, "We are not called upon to do all the good that is possible, but only that which we can do." So the next part is hope. There is reason for hope, despite all the bad news. So according to NASA, and as cited by Anthony Leiserowitz, PhD research scientist at Yale, 97% of climate scientists have concluded that human-caused global warming is happening. Leiserowitz sums it up as follows: scientists agree, it's real, it's happening, it's bad, but there is hope. So the hope piece comes from all the people who are doing the work and who do care. And there are lots of people out there that I spoke to who are making a difference in doing the work. You just may not hear about them in the news. And the thing I realize is there's no one magic solution, but we can reframe that in our minds and say, okay, there's not one magic solution, but that means there are lots of solutions, lots and lots of ways to plug in and make a difference. That can kind of help us with the hope piece. Losing my shawl here. So some of the people in the book mentioned things we can do, such as what I've already talked about, the native plants and the native trees. Other people talked about the urgent need to keep fossil fuels in the ground, transition to renewable energy, such as solar, geothermal, the importance of protecting our urban forests and our wetlands, regenerative farming practices, getting rid of single-use plastics and the harms from plastic pollution. There are just lots and lots of ways to make a difference. So another example of faith and hope would be just planting a garden, right? You put that seed in and you have faith that it's going to become a vegetable or a wildflower of some sort, and you have hope that it's going to nourish you and maybe nourish the pollinators, the bees, the butterflies. So just having a garden is, I think, an example of faith and hope. Okay, so the next part is action. There's a quote from Greta Thunberg: Once we start to act, hope is everywhere. So instead of looking for hope, look for action. Then and only then, hope will come. So that goes back to the interconnected web of life. Everything we do matters. Everything ripples out and impacts everything else. All of our actions matter. So for instance, if you're able to buy local organic produce, or if you're putting together a organic community garden, right? Something just like that is preventing the use of pesticides. It's preventing the excessive use of fossil fuels because you're not transporting your food over a long distance. It's giving you more nutritious food because the food isn't being transported long distance, picked when it's unripe, and you're getting it more wholesome and fresh right from your garden. So something like that is just rippling out in a lot of different ways. Or planting a tree. We had the children's story about chopping down a tree, but planting a tree, if you think of all the birds, the owls, the raccoons, the squirrels, all the insects, every creature that's using just one tree, and then the roots are absorbing water, which helps prevent the urban flooding. It's providing cooling shade, so that's going to help with the heat waves. It's storing carbon dioxide, so it's helping with global warming. So just planting a tree is rippling out and being helpful in lots of ways. So there's a quote by Gandhi: "What you do may seem insignificant, but it's most important that you do it." Okay. So an example of this rippling out interconnected piece is in the preface of the book, so I'll share that. And this is a mother I know personally, so I like to share it. On a visit to the sprawling farmlands in southern Indiana, I met with Dorothy, who is 91 years old. She was telling me she saw more fireflies in her yard this past summer than she has seen since she was a girl. She said, "I haven't seen that many fireflies in over 65 years. It was amazing." The landscape near Dorothy's home, where she and her husband have lived for close to 70 years and where they raised their 7 children, has undergone drastic, some would say radical, changes of late. An abutting 300-acre corn and soybean farm owned by her brother is now being managed by his son, Pat. Pat is a firm believer in regenerative farming. Just a few years ago, he began planting diverse native cover crops and stopped tilling the soil. Under Pat's management, the family farm also significantly decreased its use of pesticides and chemical fertilizers. The result of his efforts is healthier soil that results in better nutrition in the food crops. As an added bonus, Pat has witnessed a return of wildlife. The soil now contains worms, and the diverse native cover crops bring needed insects like bees, butterflies, and other pollinators, along with a multitude of songbirds. Eagles and hawks soar over his land, and quail make their home in a woodpile at the edge of the property. This healthy soil with deep roots from native plants absorbs rainfall better, acting as a sponge to help alleviate flooding. What is more, the water on his land no longer contains all the harsh chemical poisons that run off into neighboring streams and water supplies. Finally, these healthier land practices store carbon dioxide in the soil, a critical step in combating global warming. Just this one person doing his small bit of good on this piece of land has benefited the entire ecosystem, including the arrival of lightning bugs in Dorothy's adjoining yard. Yeah. I like to share that story because it just illustrates so well how our actions can ripple out even in ways beyond what we might have imagined when we took our initial action. That's one of my favorite stories. So finally, the last piece, ushering in a new earth era together. So that story illustrates how one person can make a difference, but when we combine our efforts, when we all join together, that means we are more powerful, more forceful, and we can do more good in the world to help our Mother Earth. So here's an example. I met with Zach from Solar United Neighbors. That's an organization, and he was explaining to me how Solar United Neighbors got started. So two 12-year-old boys had watched An Inconvenient Truth, the movie by Al Gore, and they wanted to do something about climate change, and so they wanted to get solar panels. So the one boy, Walter, talked to his mom about getting solar panels, and she said, you know, that's expensive. So the boys went neighbor to neighbor, 45 homes, and got everyone to join together into getting community solar power for that neighborhood. And then other communities and other neighborhoods started calling this mother saying, what did you do? How did you do it? Can you help us? And so this mother, good Mother's Day story, started Solar United Neighbors. That organization, by this person, one mom, now has 150,000 members across the United States. And it's a free resource. It just helps people who want to call up and say, I'm interested in solar. Can you, point me in the right direction? Here's my questions. It just serves as a resource for other communities. So that's a great Mother's Day story. Yeah. So we honor our Mother Earth by joining together in conversations, joining together in our collective actions, joining together in community, and sharing our ideas and our inspiration and our resources, and then coming together to make that happen in our local communities. So the book at the very end has discussion topics with the idea that, maybe we can have groups get together, maybe invite someone from a local business or a local school or someone from the government or someone from the neighborhood or, the church community, so that we can come together and start having these conversations. And then, if two 12-year-old boys can come up with a great idea, I'm sure everyone in this room has wonderful ideas. Like, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be, a government official. You can be a citizen who just cares about the earth and then comes together in conversation and says, hey, let's try this, let's do this, and then let's make it happen. So that's for anyone who's interested in book clubs or group discussions to go a little bit further. And then I'm going to conclude with a quote from Buckminster Fuller, environmentalist, inventor. And his quote, "In order to change an existing paradigm, you do not struggle to try and change the problematic model. You create a new model, and you make the old one obsolete." So the new paradigm, healthy people, healthy communities, and a healthy planet. That's what we want. So thank you for listening, for being here, and for honoring the mother of all beings, our Mother Earth. So thank you.